Hello, this is Seth Ward. I'm grateful to my student Stephanie Cynkar for providing me with this PowerPoint of University of Wyoming Study Abroad in Israel program. This PowerPoint dates from 2010 when she joined us in the program. The tour starts in Jerusalem, in the Old City, in an area in which you can see the Hurva Synagogue, which had recently been rededicated, and a minaret from a mosque that was built, frankly, in order to make sure that there was an Ottoman mosque that was higher than the dome of the Hurva Synagogue. The mosque was preserved. The Hurva Synagogue was destroyed in 1948, or as a result of the 1948 war. We went to the top of the Mount of Olives, from which we viewed the Jewish cemetery in the area right below the viewing stand, then the Muslim cemetery very close to the city walls, then the Dome of the Rock. You can see the silvery gray dome of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and behind it to the left, the white dome very much on the left side of the image, the Hurva Synagogue. Right in the center, about halfway between the Dome of the Rock and Al-Aqsa Mosque, is a tower from the Protestant church, Anglican and Lutheran church, in the heart of the Christian section, and the skyscrapers of downtown Jerusalem. Here's a close-up of the Dome of the Rock. We walk down from the Mount of Olives to the Garden of Gethsemane, a place where Jesus is supposed to have prayed.
Get to class. Get to class.
And this is where he was taken by the Romans on the night that he was imprisoned and eventually executed. One of the things that we do in the old city of Jerusalem is go through excavations that go through the very earliest part of the Davidic city from 3,000 years ago and back possibly many, many centuries before that. The excavations are ongoing. There are certainly finds that date from the latter part of the Davidic dynasty, from the 700s and 600s BCE. Some of the finds are considered by the archaeologists possibly to be from the time of King David himself. This is a pool which provided water inside Jerusalem, and the water works that brought the water inside the city to protect it in case of attack are things that we view here. The first of several Holocaust memorials that we visited was Martefa Shoah. Each plaque here is a plaque erected by the survivors from a Jewish city or a village that was destroyed by the Nazis. Most of the people were executed, and the survivors put up a sign. We saw many excavations. This particular scene looks towards the Mount of Olives, from where the earlier pictures were taken, and has ruins that go back to Second Temple times and go on through the Islamic period. Typically, we take a tour of the excavations below street level on the western wall. As time went on, people built above where the street was. So the level of the street in the time of Herod, about 2,100 years ago, is way lower than the level of the street today. There are some excavations that went through the under the street level, and we're able to see parts of the wall in Herod's time and a model of what the city looked like as part of the tour. Here we are in the Muslim quarter in one of the streets that goes back from the Kotel tour, the tour of the subterranean parts of the Western Wall. This is in Yad Vashem, the Israeli state memorial to the Holocaust. We visited the museum and some of the memorials to righteous Gentiles, to the 1.5 million children who were murdered by the Nazis, and various other memorials that are on the location. There's also an eternal flame with the names of the extermination camps that we will visit. This is the Shrine of the Book at the Israel Museum. On the side to the right, you can see Israel's Knesset. The Dead Sea Scrolls are displayed here, or at least some of the Dead Sea Scrolls, in facsimiles of some more. There is an entire Isaiah scroll. There is a codex of the Bible, which is one of the oldest known book versions of nearly the entire Old Testament in Hebrew that's on display. I believe that one is the original. Near the Shrine of the Book, there is a model of Jerusalem in Second Temple times, first started by the archaeologist Michael Aviona some 30, 40 years ago, and made somewhat more up to date. It is in the Hebrew University. It's next to the Hebrew University, which you can see in the background, the campus in Givat Ram. We went to the Tower of David Museum, and we'll presumably go there again, both for the history. It goes back to the time of the Maccabees, has everything from as many as 3,000 years ago in some areas in the time of David, but many more from Maccabean and Herodian times, and the Ottoman additions that you can see, such as the tower on the right side of the image. There's a Sound of Light show there that's really phenomenal, and we will go there when the city of Jerusalem hosts a party on Jerusalem Day with the mayor of Jerusalem, who likes photo ops. So every year we'll take a photo, and presumably we'll have a chance to have a photo with the mayor of Jerusalem near Barkat. Ascension Thursday is the day on which Jesus is supposed to have ascended to heaven. We'll go to the celebration of the Greek Orthodox, Coptic, Assyrian, and Georgian communities. They have separate celebrations because their rituals are a little bit different, and the rock from which Jesus is said to have ascended to heaven is right under this cupola, under this dome. The primate of Jerusalem, the Greek Orthodox Archbishop, typically comes as part of the celebration, and we often get a chance to see him walk in with his assistants to visit the tomb, visit the location of the Ascension. I like to take us to a number of universities. Here's a view from the auditorium at Hebrew University looking towards the Dead Sea. You'll typically visit some of the study abroad programs and learn about some of the options for intensive Arabic, intensive Hebrew, peace or conflict resolution studies, and actually many, many more topics that are available in the summer programs and in study abroad terms where you have a chance to do a full term or 2 terms in Israel. The University of Wyoming has study abroad agreements with Hebrew University, the University of Haifa, and with Ben-Gurion University of the Negev. Caesarea is beautiful. That's the only thing that I can say. It's a ruins. It's right on the beach. It was one of the largest maritime ports during its time. There is a stone which has an inscription to Pontius Pilate, one of the very few. It may even be the only one in which his name is mentioned in an inscription found by archaeologists. Here is one of the Roman streets that was uncovered by archaeology. This is the cave of Elijah the prophet according to tradition. It's maintained by a single family. If we can, we go there. Sometimes we hike down and then back up the Mount Carmel where Elijah is supposed to have spent an awful lot of his time. The PowerPoint is not advancing, and I'm hoping to fix this. we go. That's a view from the very northern part of Israel. We visit limestone caves, typically right at the border with Lebanon. There's actually a very important historical story here. There were bridges that were blown up as part of the fighting that went on in the Israel War of Independence and in Israeli fighting against the British. Stephanie took a picture of graffiti. This is the Shahada. I testify that there is no God save God. I testify that Muhammad is the messenger of God, with the signature of the artist. The old city of Acre was a city that flourished in Crusader times and in Ottoman times. We visit some of the ruins of both. I particularly like to go to Ali Jazar Pasha's mosque. Ali Jazar Pasha was basically the power in Acre at the time of Napoleon, and his cannons fired the shots that basically signaled the end of any attempt by Napoleon to conquer this part of the world. If we can, we visit the Baha'i Gardens. They are simply gorgeous. I try to do the tour, which includes a short visit to the shrine of the Bab, who is buried in Haifa. The classical building that's to the left of the image is their headquarters, administrative and I guess we call the administrative and juridical headquarters. It's where they meet and decide questions about the direction of the faith. This is in Nazareth at the Roman Catholic Church of the Annunciation. You have a Cairo with Alpha and Omega in the background, as well as the Virgin Mary. The prevalence of statues, especially statues of Mary and Jesus, is one of the indicators of Roman Catholic in the Holy Land. The Greek Orthodox are the other large group, and there are many other smaller Christian groups. This is a boat that was dug up in the Sea of Galilee. The dating is to the time of Jesus, so it's usually called the Jesus boat, and the archaeologists who dug it up assumed that Jesus may possibly have used this boat or a similar boat when he worked as a fisherman. This is Chorazim. Chorazim is associated with the Beatitudes. Here's a view looking down to the Sea of Galilee from the Church of the Beatitudes. We went to the Golan Heights. I do not know whether we'll be able to go as far as we did for this picture. Right now, as you can well imagine, the border with Syria is more tense than it has been at any time since 1967 due to the unrest in Syria, to the Syrian, what I'll call the Syrian Civil War. There have been shells that have gone over the border, and I'm not quite sure what the safety situation is. The location we go to is very high above that. We may be able to go there as well. We passed along a field where the mines have not yet been removed. Some of the places we go to, men and women have to separate. This is from the tomb of Maimonides. Maimonides died in 1204, born in 1135, and he lived much of his life in Spain and in Egypt, a few years in Israel, in Tiberias, and that's where his body was brought for burial according to tradition. This is an image looking up from over the tomb of Maimonides. The Jordan River has this very unique color right when it comes out of the Sea of Galilee. This is actually a section that was re-engineered for hydrological purposes, for water supply and for power supply. Back in the 1930s, there's also a kibbutz which has a baptismal location where you have the opportunity to be baptized in the Jordan River. The Dead Sea has wonderful swimming. You can't stay in it very long. It's so salty that you float. There's also therapeutic mud. And if we have the time and participants have the interest, we'll go to one of the places where you can cover yourself in this mud, which normally you have to buy for, not that expensive, but buying packages here, it's, just pick it up and slather it on. After the very salty water, it's good to go to the freshwater springs in En Gedi right near the Dead Sea. We climbed Masada. Stephanie's program went up the Roman ramp, quite a feat of engineering. Some years we go up the Snake Path, which is about 1,500 feet from the Dead Sea, one of the lowest places on Earth, getting lower every year because the water is diminishing. And Masada is about 4,750 some odd feet above sea level, but it's 1,500 feet down to the bottom. We typically stay in a Bedouin camp in a woven tent with camel rides, really delicious Bedouin food, and a cultural presentation by a Bedouin, and sometimes other programming. Back in Jerusalem, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre has all the Christian groups. This image was taken from the roof, which is the only place the Ethiopians have their chapel, and in earlier times they even had a little hostel where some of the monks lived. This is a view looking southwest from near the place that we stayed in Jerusalem. Tel Aviv is a very modern city. This is looking towards sunset at the Mediterranean Sea with some of the hotel towers. We were not staying very far from the beach at all, as you can tell. Jaffa is the older part of Tel Aviv. These are Egyptian ruins. Some of the stuff there is original and some of it is reconstructed. It's generally thought that the ruins are from about 3,500 years ago. And we also went on the hill of Jaffa and took pictures of the Tel Aviv coastline and that marvelous beach. This is the Negev desert near the grave of Ben Gurion, the first Prime Minister of Israel, and his wife, which is here. Here's a view at sunset. If possible, we'll do a day trip, maybe even an overnight trip into Jordan, into Petra. And here is the view of the Sikh, where they go through the ravine that is really the only practical entrance to Petra. This is probably a burial chamber actually carved into the side of the rock, not a government building. And here you see some more buildings. You can see the people climbing them. So you see the monumental stature of these buildings. If the political situation and time allows, we will go to the traditional site of Mount Sinai in the Sinai Peninsula. It's near a modern city called Santa Caterina. The monastery at the foot of Mount Sinai has the actual burning bush. It's no longer burning. This is the bush that was in flames but was not consumed. It also has the well near which Moses found Zipporah. Here's a view climbing the traditional Mount Sinai, and you do it at night and try to get there in time for sunrise. It's quite impressive. Finally, the Red Sea. The Red Sea has gorgeous coral. If we go to Eilat, this will probably be part of the 3-week program. You'll get a chance to swim in some of the really very wonderful coral sea. All you need is to rent a snorkel and a mask, and it's really very easy.